And welcome back, everybody. Rusty here with the Rugby Review. And with the URC being on its 3 to 4 week break right now, I thought it'd be kind of fun to give a little review and recap of the international games that I have access to and was able to watch this past week. So the first game that I was able to watch was the England versus Australia game. So England 27, Australia 7. This was to say the least, a very dominant game on both offense and defense for England here, as you can see by this scoreline. So if we look at the stat line here, England is in the red ink, Australia is in the black ink, and despite some possession and territory stats favoring Australia, England was the much better team during the course of this whole game. So if we zoom in on our top half here of the stats, yes, possession and territory did favor Australia, as you can see. However, that it's not a very accurate way to showcase the efficiency that England had on offense. So if you look down at the meters gained stat, you have 510 meters gained for England versus 341 for Australia. So yes, England did have less possession, less territory. However, when they did have the ball, they were much more effective and much more efficient with it. And yes, there was 193 tackles made for England versus the 104 for Australia. But again, the high-pressure English defense led to many Australian mistakes, which then led to very efficient offense for England, which got them a very dominant win this past week over Australia. The next game that I was able to watch was a bit of a bloodbath, to say the least. We have Scotland versus the USA. Scotland 85, USA 0. So we'll take a look at the stats here. We won't need to look at this for very long to see just the domination that Scotland had this past week. And let's just zoom right in here. So possession and territory very much favored towards Scotland. Scotland is in the black ink here. USA is in the red ink. So 61% possession for Scotland, 57% territory. Very, very much favored towards Scotland. The one thing that is kind of blowing my mind right now is tackles made. Scotland scored 85 points this past game, but only needed to make 84 tackles. They scored more than tackles made for defense. Just blowing my mind with that one right there because of just how dominant Scotland was just throughout this whole game. And to just kind of hammer home that point, look at the meters gained stat at the bottom here. We have 913 meters gained for Scotland versus 126 for the USA. Again, just really hammers home the point. Scotland dominated from start to finish on this game. And moving on to the next game here, which is probably the marquee match of this weekend, we have Ireland versus New Zealand. Ireland 13, New Zealand 26. Despite what this score looks like here, this was a pretty close game for a good while. I think it was about 55, 60-ish minutes into the game when New Zealand just kind of wore down the Irish defense and was able to score a few tries to really spread out the lead towards the end there. So if we look at the stat sheet here, there's a good amount of stats that are in favor of New Zealand. And the ones that I want to look at in more depth come down here towards the bottom end of the stat sheet. So if we take a look at the top here, meters gained, 285 meters gained for Ireland and 479 gained for New Zealand, just showcasing New Zealand on the front foot quite a bit more than Ireland was. And if you look at the bottom here, clean break, fast break opportunities, only 2 clean break opportunities for Ireland versus 6 for New Zealand, holding on to the ball quite a bit more than Ireland was, leading to many more meters gained, a lot of clean breaks, and just led to more scoring opportunities for New Zealand. So good win for New Zealand, and then I'm sure Ireland will have a very good bounce back against whatever team that they're going to be playing this week. And the next game that I had access to is always a fun one. The Barbarians, the Barbars, versus the All Blacks 15. So for everybody who may not be familiar with the All Blacks 15, this is kind of like a stepping stone to the full-fledged senior side. So the All Blacks 15 is a combination of players that were injured that are trying to work their way back to the senior squad, or, young 20 to 23-year-olds that are trying to make a name for themselves, saying, yes, we can play at the international level. So good game, fun game to watch. It was very much the Barbarians dominating for about the first 30 minutes, first half, and then complete domination by the All Blacks 15 and 33 unanswered points for the All Blacks in the second half. So let's take a look at the stats here. And we can see possession territory both favoring towards the All Blacks, and then tackles shifting towards the Barbarians, showcasing Barbarians are playing a little bit more defense, and then All Blacks were able to play a little bit more offense, and then play in the Barbarians half a little bit more. So let's zoom in on that. Again, as we can see, possession territory favoring All Blacks 15, and then tackles made was 140 for the Barbarians versus 94 for All Blacks 15. Again, just showcasing, despite the dominant first 30 minutes for the Barbarians, they ended up playing more defense and were playing in their half more often. And if we take a look a little further down the stat sheet here, the one that really sticks out to me on this group here is at the bottom here with clean breaks. 10 clean breaks for the All Blacks 15 versus just 1 for the Barbarians. So again, a very dominant start to the game for the Barbarians, but once the All Blacks 15 got back into the game, they, kind of started running all over the Barbarians, and, there was 33 unanswered points. You see 10 clean breaks. Kind of makes sense, and so understandable how the All Blacks 15 was able to get back into the game. Now, the last game of this week that I had access to was the lopsided Japan-South Africa game. You had Japan scoring 7 points and South Africa with 61. Let's jump right into the stats here. Possession territory, as you can imagine, favoring South Africa. Again, if you're able to watch this game, South Africa was extremely dominant pretty much right from the opening kickoff to the very end of the game. There was only one instance where Japan was able to catch South Africa sleeping, and they were able to score their one try on that. And to just really hone in on the dominance of South Africa for this game comes towards the bottom half of the stat sheet here with meters gained. As you can see, 281 meters gained for Japan in the black ink, and then 588 for South Africa. Just a very, very large discrepancy there, showcasing the dominance on offense that South Africa was able to showcase this particular game. In addition, if you look down at defenders beaten plus clean breaks, both of those are very heavily favorited towards South Africa. You have South Africa with 33 defenders beaten and 8 clean breaks versus 15 defenders beaten for Japan and only 3 clean breaks for Japan. So again, just a very offensively dominant game for our South Africa. And honestly, defensively, they were extremely dominant too. They were turning the ball over left and right, absolutely killing momentum and offensive flow with, who was it, Jasper Wiese, Malcolm Marks were turning the ball over left and right when they were in the game. So, just overall, great game for South Africa here. And that's it for this week. That's all the games I had access to. Next week, I'll have a completely different slate of games, and I don't really know offhand how many games I'll have access to, but stay tuned for next week. Thank you, and enjoy the games.